or what a cold day here in Kampala. I don't know where you are and what the weather is like, but as for us here at the Broadcast House, UBC, I must say it is raining cats and dogs. And in case you're coming to town, one of the things you must do is carry a cardigan, carry an umbrella, carry something to keep you warm. If you have infants, leave stringent rules for them. Those guys want and enjoy playing in the rain. But at the end of the day, I don't know what the connection is between rain and fever. Because when I was young, they used to tell us, don't play in the rain, you're going to get malaria. Now, the little of my science talks about a female anopheles mosquito, but then you end up shivering, then you're so parents, whatever it is, make sure you protect those children and they don't play in the rain. Sometimes even dirty water, they get infections, it becomes, and the Christmas may be disorganized when you have the budget for eating, drinking, celebrating, and now you're spending that money in hospitals. Yet to the young ones, Christmas is all about partying and eating and taking soda. Now, today we are going to be discussing issues regarding the adolescents. I don't know what comes to your mind when you talk about this stage or this group of people known as adolescents. Sometimes they used to confuse me, teenagers and adolescents. Remember when I clocked 13 and they said, now we have a teenager in the house. Like, okay, that's the age when you're 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Those are teenagers. Now we have adolescents. Well, I have a person who is better placed to answer this question, so that our topic is looking at if our adolescents have the required skills, social skills to see them through. And our research was carried out by Alive. And joining me this morning, I have, that is the principal of this institute, Luigi Gisan Institute of Higher Education. That is an Italian word. Pardon me if my pronunciation is not that very good. I'm not so much versed with Italians and how they pronounce their things, but it is Luigi Gisan Institute of Higher Education, and that is Madame Akong Rose Stella, who happens to be the National Learning Coordinator at this institute. You're most welcome to our studios.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here this morning. Yes.
To begin with, help me understand this group of people called as adolescents and our viewers, because it's going to shape our discussion, for them to better understand which age group, which category of people was this research carried on, and they better understand how we can help.
The assessment of life skills and values in East Africa, which we call Alive, is a study that was conducted among teenagers 13 to 17 years of age across the 3 East African countries of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. It's a program that is conducted by RELI. RELI is the Regional Education Learning Initiative, and RELI is a member-based organization that brings together over 70 different organizations that is in the education space. The passion of RELI is children, and we want to see how we can up or increase or improve learning outcomes among students from all ages. But this particular study looked at 13 to 17 years. In Uganda, it was conducted among 11,074 adolescents between the ages of 13 to 17. And it was conducted in 20 districts across the country, in 400 enumeration areas, as given to us by UBOS. And it was done by a number of different people, teachers, volunteers, community leaders, and teacher trainers. Yes, so we were looking at the main question that we wanted to answer was, do our adolescents have life skills? And yes, the answers came out, and they were quite interesting.
Yeah, before we go to the answers, let's understand what informed the need for this research that pushed Alive to do this research? Because one would say maybe they would look at reproductive health, maybe they would look at, but why life skills at such a point?
You know, we are living in the 21st century, and the 21st century, the core characteristic of the 21st century is it's very volatile, it's so uncertain, it's complex, and it's so ambiguous. And in this world, you know, in literature, in social science literature, it's commonly abbreviated the VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now, in that space, in that world, you need a host of skills to be able not only to make it in that space, but also to thrive. So we look at adolescents and we ask ourselves, do they have the skills that they need to thrive in this space? Do they have the skills that they need to be who they are and to interact meaningfully in the environments that they find themselves in? Do they have the skills that they need to work, you know, with others? Do they have the skills that they need to get what they want where it is? So, and that is a discussion that is at the heart of every person who is passionate about children. Can our children live in this ambiguous space that they are in? Can they live in this volatile space that we are finding ourselves in? And as Rally and the rest of us who are in Rally, our passion is to help these young people acquire these competencies and these skills to be able to not only live, but meaningfully and live and thrive in their space.
I love the word, not only to live,
yes,
but live meaningfully, live and thrive.
Yes.
Because the truth is we have so many teenagers that are just living. They wake up and they're alive and they're like, praise the name of the Lord. I've completed 2022. So they're just passing through. They just pass by, no impact, no nothing, but they're growing and they're passing through. Now, this takes me to know what are some of the key findings of this research that did emerge. Maybe
before we get to the findings, it's been a long journey. Their life journey started in 2020. And when we realized we need to help our young people acquire these skills, we looked around and said, okay, how do we nurture these skills? But before you nurture the skills, you need to understand how to assess the skills. You know, if I am to nurture something, if you're to nurture something in a person, you need to know when it is there. How do I know the skills are there? That's where the assessment comes in. So our journey started with what we called a contextualization study. The contextualization study looked at 3 skills that we thought were very important and very key for our adolescents in the 3 East African countries. We looked at problem solving, we looked at collaboration, and self-awareness. And then we picked one other value of respect, you know, so that we understand these skills as per the East African context. How do we define collaboration as East Africans, as Ugandans? How do we define collaboration? Because a lot of the information that we get in literature, a lot of the things that we find in literature is from the global north to the global south. So we're just more like recipients of knowledge, and we're using this knowledge to, in the context that is not
conflicting royalty.
Yes, it's not our context. It's not. The Americans can define collaboration as something, but when you come to the Ugandan context, is it collaboration? When you talk of respect in the Ugandan context, we will talk of kneeling down. You know, we'll talk of bowing when you're greeting the elders. You will talk of a host of different things, but the Americans will say something different in regard to respect. So we said, okay, let's try to understand this, you know, skills and values from our own context. What do our people think collaboration is? What do our people think self-awareness is? What do our people think problem solving is? So that contextualization study brought us to a place where we are able to appreciate from our own voice and our own understanding what respect is, what collaboration is. So we were able then to develop the tools with expert help, definitely from the north, from the west. With that expert help, we were able to come up with a tool that was contextualized to our need, to our understanding of these different skills. So the tool development was complete, and then we had to move into the assessment and say, okay, now we have the tool that speaks our voice, that speaks our language, that understands our context. Can we test it out and see what results it brings? So that's the survey that we did. That's the research.
Looked at these 4 areas that you just talked about. It looked at the 4
areas, yes.
So they were they acted as the yardsticks to the findings that you got. So now let's go to the findings. So
the findings were very interesting. We discovered that 2% of this is something that is making a lot of headlines. 2% of adolescents are able to meaningfully, or what can I say, they demonstrated the proficiency in problem solving. Proficiency in problem solving for us was like they are able to identify a problem from multiple perspectives and come up with multiple solutions to that problem.
That is only 2%?
2%. For problem solving.
Though it's not in negatives, good, but
it's not in negatives.
If it's a paper, 2 is a total failure.
That's 2 out of 11,000, 2% of 11,074. Yes, that is problem solving. And then we had 19% were able to demonstrate proficiency in self-awareness. So for us, we were looking at proficiency in self-awareness as the ability to remain aware of oneself, even as you take into perspectives of others. So we looked at self-awareness from the point of perspective taking and knowing yourself and taking on the perspectives of others. Yes, and then 9% of the adolescents were demonstrating proficiency in respect. And when I looked at this, my initial response was like, just 9%? We are the most respectful society there is.
Africans, and of course when you come to this region,
we are very respectful, but we had 9%. When we were looking at respect, we looked at self-respect, we looked at respect for environment, and we looked at respect for property. So we came up with 9%, and then 6% were able to demonstrate proficiency in collaboration. Collaboration, for us, that proficiency, we were able to look at someone taking on another person's position, contributing meaningfully to a discussion or a task that was given to them, and then prompting others to participate and draw their attention into what tasks was happening.
Well, the findings are not that very interesting. I mean, the revelations are worrying, respect, looking at, but also in your perspective as those that carried out this survey, how exactly did you understand the survey indicators when you're carrying out this research? Of course, this will help us also know how the community actually may have to push in or help here, because some of the indicators you talked about, as an African person, I thought you're not doing bad at all. I thought you're not doing bad at all. When you look at our children, how quick they begin to fend for themselves, you know, you'd think they solve problems very easily. When you look at the element of respect You would say mostly in East Africa, where I know a bit, that shouldn't be a problem at all, but you have a 19, you have a 9, then you have a 2. I get worried.
It's worrying, but for us, we think this is taking us in the right direction, because at least right now we have an understanding of what is happening. We know what is on the ground, and it's something that is nice to know, because as we look at the education space right now, the lower secondary school curriculum that was rolled out, I think 2 years ago, should be 3 years if COVID did not interrupt it. But it's focusing towards this direction. It's moving towards nurturing these skills. It's moving towards helping our adolescents to get grounded in these skills. So this coming out, this tool, for me, I see it as something that is going to give us a shift, you know, that is going to focus us into the right direction. It's not all hope lost. It's not all hope lost, but we are moving in the right direction towards, yeah, this is what we have. This is the state we are at. And if you know, a diagnosed problem is half solved. Yes, so that's what I think.
Well, this brings me also to ask myself, why are adolescents very critical in this assessment? Given the findings, maybe one would look at maybe schools, teachers, parents. Why exactly do we find adolescents very critical?
As Uganda, our young population is the biggest. And we need to invest. This is my personal perspective. We need to invest, a lot into them and build them to be the people we want to see tomorrow, to be the light bearers that we want to see tomorrow. So they become key and instrumental in our interventions. They become the center of our intervention for the purpose that we want to see a generation that is thriving. We want to see a generation that is focused. We want to see a generation that is agile. We want to see a generation that will take us higher than where we are right now. So they become critical. They become a key point of intervention. But even in the life skills alone, and we believe that teachers and the family play crucial roles. So it's not just the adolescent, both the teachers and the families play a crucial role, and both of them have to be brought on board to interact meaningfully and effectively with these young people and to help nurture these skills.
Well, we are looking at adolescents, if they have life skill developments among them, because that is the way to go. Today it's not all about saying I went through the education system. If you don't have these skills, well, that's why we hear some people saying, but our youth are not employable. Then you ask the person, well, if you want a degree, don't they have the degrees? If you want diplomas, don't they have the diplomas? Experience that, I don't know where they study it, but of course, someone says, even if they have all that, I've said they're not employable. Like, do you just want to deny them jobs? He says they don't have life skills needed for the employment sector. They are qualified, they passed with the first class, second class, upper, but you can't employ them. Respect, poor. Coordination, working together, poor. Problem solving, 2%. Now what are you giving us? Well, that is what we are discussing this morning. But then this brings me, Madam Stella, to ask if there are specific recommendations to policy and non-state stakeholders in the sector that, as researchers who carried out this, recommended that this must be put in place. Because I know usually research has recommendations basing on your findings.
Well, for us, actually, we came up, yes, with recommendations, But we came up with, I think, more questions too. that is pushing us to even research more, you know, on the issue of life skills among our teenagers and adolescents. But one of the key things that came out of this study is it's about time that we integrate or integrated. I don't know which one is the right word. It's about time that we integrate or integrated assessment of life skills in the end of cycle exams, what we usually call end of cycle exams, that is at P7, Senior 4, and because we believe that, or not just us believing, but it is on the table that what is not assessed is not taught.
And I agree with you very much.
And if it is not taught, then it's not nurtured. So we are having this chorus of voices that we need to incorporate this. We need to have this integrated into the assessment.
And actually on that, I've spoken to a number of people in the education system, also owners of non-state education institutes. You ask them, well, you don't have a pitch. Physical exercise, someone asks you, have you enabled bibuza? And does your neighbor ask that? You tell them, well, you can't have a full time without debating clubs. To build the IQ, reason and all this. Someone asks you, which paper examines debate? He says, why would I hire a teacher to teach certain things that are not examined?
Which is not examined.
My parents want 4 out of 4. You tell them building morals in schools. They will tell you, but where do I benefit? I want value for money. No one is going to come and ask me, how behaved are your students? They want to say, last year, Senior 4, how did you perform? Yeah. Senior 6, P7. That is the basis. And I'll say in a class of 100, 90 got first grades. Say, oh, okay. So it's all about, that's where our education system has gone. It's no longer about the things, the 4 pillars that this research was based on. So when you call about integrating these into what is taught, and not only taught, because when you look at our education syllabus, I just got to know there is so much that they don't teach in schools. Just got to know that physical education is mandatory. But I know of schools that have never had anything to do with PE, but they are passing with flying colors, and parents opt for them.
That's true. That's true. And the other thing that also came up in our different discussions is that, yes, the teachers actually would love to teach this. Even right now, national curriculum has rolled out, they've trained teachers, they're retooling teachers to be able to teach and you know, implement the lower secondary school curriculum.
Which I find that also that a number don't know either what to do, or they don't know how to carry it on, or they don't have the facilities. It's also in some places a confusion at table. It's
a hot potato for everyone. It's everyone is finding a way to move around it. It's not something that we can comfortably say we know what to do, you know, but at least we are committed to the process. And you look at National Council, National Curriculum Development Center, they are committed to the process. UNEB is working around the clock to make sure the next, you know, our next candidates, that those who have started on with this curriculum are prepared and they are taught and they are ready to be examined, you know, with this. So they're working around the clock to achieve this. And now for us, our concern at this point is, can we get these things to the teacher training institutions? These methodologies or these skills or these concepts to the teacher training institutions, because usually we change curriculum, but at the end of the day the teachers are like taken by, you know, they just have to run with what is there, or they have to join in the discussion and move in the direction of what is happening according to policy. But for us, we are speaking and saying, let the teacher training institutions roll out, let the curriculum start rolling out there, so that the teachers who are coming out are able to teach what we are saying in the curriculum. And if they are able to teach meaningfully, then the students are able to get what we are teaching them. So that's another voice that we are pushing out.
What is the possibility that these are going to be integrated when you look at the way things are moving? This is a very good research, there are very good findings, there are very good recommendation. But you see, one of the things I've understood in our country for some time is we've done research, Madam Stella. If you go and find a number of research that has been done, implementation, integrating these findings remains the problem. If you remember the white paper on education by Professor, I think it was Sinteza Kajubi, a very good one. I was privileged to read through it, the plan it had for education in this country. Over the years, not much has been implemented. We are now having the Education Review Commission that is seeking views and opinions of stakeholders. Recently, I saw the union that brings together teachers, led by I think is it Frederick Baguma or something like that, where they were saying, even let's have now 8 years, is it for primary? And I was like, but we had a white paper that I felt if implemented, things wouldn't be the way they are today. So where do you get the faith that these are going to be integrated as you suggest or would wish to?
It's now more than our faith. We are actually working together with the ministry. This research was done, was a collaborative effort. Like the tool development process that I told you about, it brought together 47 experts from the different departments of the Ministry of Education, from UNEB, from NCDC, from what used to be T8, which is now TED, from global experts and the local experts. So they came together and they're all speaking the same voice. We want our adolescents to get these skills. So it's not just now our push or our interest, but it's a global, it's a national interest, it's a global interest, and we are seeing political will, we are seeing key stakeholders, you know, interested in this and very much involved, which for me is a very positive thing. It's like all of us are really saying we want to see our children, you know, different. We want to see them engaging. We want to see them involved. We want to see them, you know, we want to see a different society, and it will begin with our children. So there is the will, there is the what is the word? The passion. The
way, the will, passion.
Yes, there is already something happening. Already the lower secondary school curriculum is embracing, you know, has brought on board this generative skills, and where else can it start if not from there? Yes.
Now, what is the most important pillar of this research that you feel, if it was a matter of urgency, this is where we should begin from?
If it was a matter of urgent, if it was urgent, we would...
that this is a must start on.
A must start on is integrate assessment of life skills into every assessment that we do in school.
Yes.
When we do that, then the teachers will be somehow, I don't want to use that word forced, but
Compelled.
They will be compelled. They will be compelled to teach it. And when they're teaching it, then the students are benefiting. So that for me is key. That for me is key. Yeah, and at all levels. Let's move to the primary as well. We are grateful for what is happening in the secondary space right now, but the primary, the children, let's start building it from the foundations and taking it up. Yeah.
Well, very interesting. They integrate. If something is not examinable or assessed, then teachers may dodge it. And these are realities. Even in the lower curriculum, whatever is not examinable, you're going to find that it's very hard for one to find time, invest. And it seems of late, our education system, we no longer have enough time. Because I'll give an example. The days when we were in school, and I want to believe Madame Stella, those also were days earlier before us. We would begin school at 8.
Yes.
We would end school at 5. Remember when I was at Mengo Senior Secondary School, we would stop class at 4, but the gate would be opened at 5. Those of us would go to Scripture Union. We had those that would go and play baseball. We had those of Home Economics Club, maybe they would go, and others would keep around, play, interacting. Then 5, the gates are opened for you to go to your hostels. Remember, in Deji still would end at 5, classes would end at 4. Then people go, maybe for it was a boarding school, but still they would give us time to play, to do other extra work, then later meals and all that. Today, classes begin as early as 5. Some schools as early as 6. Then, it can't shock you. These are not preps. Because what we used to call preps, you'd go with your books, plan one of the aspects. You plan what you're going to revise. Maybe even ask a colleague, I didn't understand this topic. You make your summary, you internalize. It would empower you. Do your research. Maybe what you've not asked, you had good teachers who would sit somewhere and they say, maybe on a weekend, for me I sit in the quadrangle, may I sit here, feel free to come and ask me. So you would go and ask, I didn't understand this, so get your colleague and ask. You know, even have some groups. Today the preps, it's a teacher teaching. The teacher comes in the classroom, exactly what he did during the day. The only thing is now you're no longer in uniform. And they are teaching. Morning preps, they are teaching. It would be something you wake up, maybe, you know, the previous day you didn't, so you know this is the lesson, you're having a math, if you had some homework or something. So these are the skills that now are running away from our education system. For us, sports was a must. You compete in colors, physically, but also there is a way. Today, you're having broilers. Child just comes, then goes back, then. So I find this research very, very important if it is integrated in the system. Let me have your parting shot.
We are actually having, you said broilers, but I think we're having a problem. I look at a child who finishes PLE and gets 4, but with such a push, you know, such stress that when you leave this child to go and there is no pressure, you know, I have seen this with the number of kids, you know, where there's a child leaves P7, goes to a secondary school, and that kind of pressure that was in the primary school is not being exerted on the child.
The 4 becomes the last.
Yeah, the 4 becomes very poorly, you know. There is no self-drive. There is no ability to take initiative, you know, personal initiative. And so if you go to a school with thousands of kids and the teachers are not pushing, then this child just lags behind and loses out entirely.
We used to have them, they come with 4s, Then we had at the end of the year average in Dejene Abatema embassy. But then the councillors came with the force.
Even up to now, they cut them. They still cut.
Average at the end of the year fails and advise to try your talents elsewhere.
Because of that, you know, the kids are being pushed, the kids are being pressured, and sometimes it's just too much. If you're a parent who is working in this kind of space and you're looking at this kind of skills that need to be nurtured in kids, you get so frustrated.
Yet if they go through that system and they get jobs where like UBC they have ability to work under minimum supervision. So you reach here, you don't have a boss to push you. Then when they assess you, you can't manage.
You can't. You know, there's no self-drive. There's no, you know, people do what is supervised instead of doing what you are brought to do. You know, at the end of the day, you find employees who come to work. If the supervisor is not watching, they are watching football. You know, if the supervisor is not on their case, they are playing cards.
Or they never bother even to come.
They don't bother.
There's no
to
consistency.
Come. There's no consistency because there is a skill, there is an etiquette, there is an ethic that was not nurtured in this person, and this is what we are saying. Let's build up our children to be the people that we can look at tomorrow and be proud of. You know, not just pumping knowledge and you know, rote learning and saying master this, memorize this, cram this. We've reduced education to cramming, which is very sad but true.
Well, I want to thank you. You've just reminded me when I was a young man and growing up, we had this common word that you behave. I'll say it in Uganda because that's where I usually had it. Weisanga tasoma. That you're behaving like you never went to school, because those people in the villages by then had a character they expected from someone who has gone to school. The way they reason, the way they talk. You couldn't go to school and you're found eating sugar cane while moving around. Even if it's an argument, you don't begin boxing. So no, for them, they discuss, they find solutions. But today, it is very hard to tell someone where Sanga Atasoma, because the difference is the similarity. You find
sometimes it's even worse.
It's even worse. Honorable members boxing, yet you hear he has a master's in a row, he has this. You find CEOs fighting, drinking to the latter, doing all those things. And this is what Madame Stella and the Alive are saying. We need to refocus. We need to integrate these life development skills in our education systems. Well, allow me to wish you a lovely day. If you're coming to town, well, carry a cardigan, carry a sweater, carry a raincoat, carry an umbrella, and keep the infant safe. God bless you. See you tomorrow.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala.